that a lot of us can't get out to travel about and run around like we'd like to right now, I think the best thing for us to do is to travel in the best mode of transport human beings have ever known. And can you guess what that mode of transport is? It's our imaginations. We are going to travel in our imaginations all over this world. Now, before we start, I have a little bit of a task for you. I've always wondered just how many countries are there in this whole wide world. But I've never been able to find that out. So you could do a favour for me. You could maybe get an adult to help you and find out for me how many countries there are in this whole entire world. I'd say there's like, I don't know, maybe as much as 200? I'm not sure. But if you can find that out for me, you can get an adult to drop me a line and let me know at perrinthestoryteller@gmail.com. Now, there may be hundreds of countries in the world, but all of those countries are all housed in what is known as 7 continents. So, in this series, we're going to try to visit as many of those continents as we can. We're going to travel today to the continent of North America. And I'm going to tell you a couple of stories that I picked up from North America about the most mischievous wee naughty rabbit you did ever hear about in all of your days. Now, that rabbit's name was Bray Rabbit. Now, the thing about Bray Rabbit was that he was what is known as a trickster. He was forever getting up to mischief and naughtiness every single day of his life, and then he would be using his tricks and his cunning to get himself out of the scrapes that he would no doubt get himself in every single day. And this first story is called Bray Rabbit's Dance. One day, on a fine morning, that little rabbit known as Bray Rabbit woke up in his den, and he thought to himself, what am I going to eat this morning? For food was one of the very few things that Bray thought about all day, every single day of his life. Well, he went up to the front door in his den and he popped his head out and he looked about him and he thought, I know what I'll eat. So he went a-hopping down the road. He went hopping down the road. Now I want to see you move them shoulders to show me the rabbit hopping down the road. He went hopping down the road and hopping down the road until he stopped. And he looked across the road and he could see a whole farmer's field full of lettuces. Now, you know how much you like, your sweets and your chocolate and all that kind of stuff there. Well, that is just how much Bray Rabbit loved lettuce. Oh yeah, lettuces were Bray Rabbit's chocolate. But there was only one problem. That was Farmer Petaway's field. And Farmer Petaway always had his fields well locked up, big high fences that were dug as deep as they were high, with locked gates and everything. There was no way that many of the animals were ever going to get into Farmer Petaway's field. Aha, but then naughty wee Brer Rabbit, well, he noticed over in the field a little girl, maybe about so high. And that little girl was Farmer Petaway's daughter, Eliza. So Brer Rabbit, he called over, "Hey, Eliza girl, how you doing?" And little Eliza, she ran up to the fence and she was like, "Hi, Brer Rabbit." And Brer Rabbit, he said to Eliza, now remember what I said, he was one of the naughtiest rabbits you ever did meet. He said to Eliza, "Say, Eliza girl, your dad said that if I was hungry and I came up to this here fence, that you would just unlock the fence and let me in, and I can eat as much as I want out of the field." And little Eliza, she just went, "Okay then, Brer Rabbit." And little Eliza, she opened the gate. And Brer Rabbit, he whoop, right into the field, ran as fast as he could and started eating and eating until his belly was big and round and he could eat no more, and then he ran on back out of the gate. Now Brer, he kept this up for a good few days. Only the next day he brought not only Mrs. Brer Rabbit and his children Brer Rabbit, but he brought a couple of his best friends as well, and they all ate and ate from Farmer Petaway's field until they could eat no more, and every day then they would run off, and that would be the end of them. Now this was all well and good, until a few days later, Farmer Petaway woke up in the morning and he thought to himself, "Boy, oh boy, I am hungry today. Now what will I eat this morning?" And he pulled on his big boots and his big coat and he went out into the field where he was going to pick some "What's happened to all my food?" said Farmer Petaway, noticing how much of his lettuces had all been devoured from the field. Well, little Eliza, she ran up at that point and she said, "Daddy, you're so silly, Daddy. You must have forgot. You told Brer Rabbit that if he was hungry, he could come up to the fence and I could open it and let him in and he could eat as much as he wanted. So that's what I did, Daddy." Now, Farmer Petaway was a clever man. So instead of getting annoyed, how could you get annoyed with wee Eliza? How was she supposed to know? So Farmer Petaway, he said to his daughter, Oh, yeah. So I did, daughter, you're right. Well, here's what I want you to do in the morning. If Brer Rabbit comes around here again tomorrow, I want you to let him in as usual. And then I want you to shut the gate. And then I'll come along and decide what I'm going to do with that pesky little naughty rabbit. Well, Eliza, she did exactly as her daddy told her to do, and the next day when Brer came along, well, she shut the gate. And Farmer Petaway, well, while that rabbit was there eating and filling his belly, Farmer Petaway snuck up behind the rabbit and ha! Gotcha! Now I'll decide what I'm gonna do with you, Brer Rabbit, he said. And he took Brer to the shed and he got him in the chair and he tied him to the chair. Now, he said, I'm hungry and there's nothing in my fields to eat hardly, so I'm gonna make some delicious rabbit stew out of you, Brer Rabbit. Oh no! Brer Rabbit was in bother now. He did not like the thought of being turned into a stew. No, he did not. Well, poor Brer was in such a pickle. And when he was sitting there tied to the chair, he started to sing a sad, sad rabbit song. He cried. But of course, when little Eliza heard that song, well, she come running into the shed and she said, Hey, Brer Rabbit, that was a lovely song. Can you sing me another song? And Brer Rabbit, now remember what I said, he was always using that cunning to get himself out of all the scrapes he would get himself into. And he said, Well, Eliza, say, if you think I'm really good at singing, well, you really ought to see me dancing. Oh, okay. Well, can you do me a dance, please, Brer Rabbit, said Eliza. Well, you know, Eliza, it's just really hard to dance when you're tied to a chair and all, so maybe if you would come along and untie me, then I could show you a dance. And little Eliza, she went, okay then, Brer Rabbit. And little Eliza untied Brer Rabbit from the chair, and he hopped up onto his two back feet, and he started to dance. And he danced, and he danced, and he danced closer to the door, and closer to the door, and closer to the door, until he got there, and he ran straight down the field, dug himself a hole right under the fence, and was gone. And Brer Rabbit had outwitted the humans for another day. Well, did you enjoy that story about Brer Rabbit? Well, I hope you did. Because Brer Rabbit stories are some of my favourite on this whole earth. In fact, I love them so much that I'll tell you one more. Now this one is called Brer Rabbit Falls Down the Well. You see now, boys and girls, one day, Brer Rabbit, Brer Raccoon, Brer Fox, Brer Bear and all the other animals in the area, they decided that they were going to dig themselves a garden. where they could plant corn so that everybody would always have something to eat. Well, then they got to work early in the morning, but it was really hard work, all that digging and digging and digging to make the ground ready to plant seeds in, especially when the sun began to rise and it got hotter. Whew. And hotter and hotter and hotter. And Bray Rabbit, he got mighty tired, as he usually did when there was hard work to be done. But he didn't want anybody else to call him lazy, for they were for always calling him lazy. So he just kept on, clearing the ground and digging, and until it all just got too much for that poor wee rabbit. What can I do, he thought. And then, ha, he had a great idea to himself. He stuck his paw in the air and he started hopping around and going, ow, 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 I've got a thorn in my paw. I've got a thorn in my paw. And all the other animals, they said, oh, Bray, you better get that thorn out and get that paw washed before it gets a nasty infection. And Bray, he was like, ow, 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 yeah, I suppose you guys are right. I'm so sorry to have to leave yous with all the work, though, for a while, but I'll go and wash this and I'll be right back. Well, Bray, he went on down the road, hopping with a big grin on his face, because that is exactly what he wanted to hear. Now, he could go and find himself a fine little shaded spot to have a wee nap in. And just as he was coming down the road, what did he see? He saw an old well. And in the well was 2 buckets connected by a long piece of rope, one at the top of the well and one way down at the bottom of the well in the water. And Bray, he thought to himself, well, that looks like a fine spot to sit and have a little nap in. So what did he do? Well, that silly little rabbit, he jumped right into the top bucket. Of course, now we know that Bray Rabbit loved nothing more than eating, so he was really quite a heavy wee rabbit. So what do you think happened, boys and girls, when Bray Rabbit jumped in to the top bucket? That bucket, it went way down to the bottom of the well, and the other bucket that had been at the bottom of the well went flew way up to the top of the well, and splash! Bray Rabbit's bucket landed in the well. Oh no! And he held on to the sides, and he daren't move because he knew that if he moved too much or made a sound that he would be tipped straight into the water, and sure he did not like the sound of that one bit. Now, old Brer Fox had been watching Brer Rabbit all morning. And Brer Fox, he knew rightly that Brer Rabbit didn't have no thorn in his paw. And when Brer Rabbit had gone a-skipping down the road to wash his wound, Brer Fox wondered, what is that mischievous little rabbit up to now? And so he crept down behind Brer Rabbit to see what he was up to. And he saw Brer Rabbit going into the well and into the bucket and down. I wonder, does that pesky little rabbit have some money, some gold down there in that well, huh? And he crept up to the well. and he listened to see if he could hear anything, but he couldn't hear nothing on account of the fact that Brer Rabbit was stood so still in that bucket and daren't say a word and daren't move. I bet you he's down there counting his riches. Brer Rabbit, called Brer Fox. Oh, Brer Rabbit, what are you doing down there? Well, when he heard Brer Fox, Brer Rabbit's ears went whew, because he realized this might be his only chance to get out of the bucket. So he had to think fast, using that cunning that he had, and he... Brer Fox! How lovely to hear from you. Well, I'm just down here, fishing. Fishing? Oh, yeah, fishing! How many fish are down there? Asked Brer Fox, knowing rightly there were no fish in the well, but he reckoned Brer Rabbit was down there counting all of that gold. Thousands of fish, Brer Fox. I'll tell you what, if you would jump in that bucket up there and come down and help me, well, you can have as much of this fish as you want. And Brer Fox, well, he thought to himself, for that is exactly what that sly fox wanted to hear. An invitation to get down there into the well and get his hands on some of that gold and riches that Brer Rabbit was sure to be counting down there. So without another moment's thought, what did that daft fox do? He jumped into the bucket at the top of the well. Now, as you can imagine, Brer Fox was a good bit heavier than Brer Rabbit. So what happened? You're right. Brer Fox's bucket went whoosh right down to the bottom of the well, and Brer Rabbit's bucket went whoosh right up to the top of the well. Now, when they were about halfway up and their buckets passed, Brer Rabbit, he waved to Brer Fox. Bye, Brer Fox. Sure, as the old saying goes, some folks go up and some folks go down. You'll reach the bottom safe and sound. Bye. Well, when his bucket made it to the top, Brer Rabbit, he hopped on out just in time to see a thirsty hunter man coming towards the well. And he called...